Some housekeeping items first, please. So at the end of this presentation, please complete the session evaluation, either in your mobile app or is only in the mobile app, because we need your feedback to continue to provide these kinds of sessions. CEU information is available at the back of the room. Please make sure to have your badge scanned and confirm your attendance for CEU or attendance certificates. Please visit the show floor for additional educational opportunities. Do I sound like a used car salesman? Okay. Not casting aspersions to used car salesman, but visit the show floor for additional educational opportunities. Please turn off your mobile devices or set them to vibrate during the presentation. So Daniel Marvin from Iron Rock. Dan is Senior VP of Operations for Iron Rock. Iron Rock is a leading manufacturer of extruded thin brick under the brand names Royal and Metro Brick, and Quarry Tile is Metropolitan Quarry Tile. Dan's been in the tile industry for over 30 years, working with other industry leaders like American Olean, Dow Tile, Florida Tile, and Mapei prior to his arrival at Iron Rock. Dan is also very active with the standards development groups and has participated in the groups with the NTCA, TCNA, ANSI, and ISO. He's a frequent speaker at trade shows, such as coverings at Total Solutions Plus, and he helps break down technical topics into actionable takeaways that directly benefit the audience. Whew, I'm not a good public speaker. Tried my best. Anyway, I've known Dan for 15 years. He's a very knowledgeable guy. This is safety and performance issues with the not-so-luxurious vinyl tile.
Thank you, Chris. All right. Good morning. Everybody awake? You've already slept off last night and you're ready for another session. Good. As Chris said, the sheets are in the back if you're looking for continuing education unit credits. And we'll jump right in. So if you're here, you probably realize that we're all in a dogfight right now with the LVTs and the LVPs of the world. It really has become the last dozen years or so that these vinyl flooring products, these plastic flooring products, have gotten much better at graphics and they've gotten much better at marketing. So a lot of what I'm going to give you today is sort of a toolkit for how you can combat some of these marketing messages where the vinyl industry is saying, hey, it's just like tile. Well, it's not just like tile, and that's really what I want to go through is why it's not like tile and some of the pushback that you can give when people are comparing the different kind of flooring choices that are out there. I'm going to start off by saying you will see a lot of different acronyms for plastic flooring. It comes under a lot of different labels. LVT and LVP have done a real good job marketing those three letters, but there's other ones you may see out there, and there's just a list here, but some of them have a little layer of wood on them, some have a little layer of stone on them, so they put wood and stone in the names. There's even the poured epoxies and the polyspartic coatings. All of those kind of in general can get lumped into plastic flooring as a category. So we put together the acronym PBM because it sounds kind of gross. So it's plastic-based materials is what we're going to refer to as all of this. It doesn't take long if you're looking on somebody's website or you're looking anywhere on Google for things to put in your bathroom before vinyl tile jumps up to the top of the list. And you go, why do I want vinyl tile in my bathroom? Well, that's where it's being marketed, in these wet areas where traditionally kind of tile, ceramic tile had the run of the roost. So the marketing that we're seeing is directly pointing at ceramic tile. They want to take away ceramic tile market share, and they want to do it with these vinyl products, and they've kind of dressed them up and given them some fancy claims, and that's how they're trying to get into this market. But as we start to peel back the curtain a little bit, you're going to see that there really isn't much behind a lot of the marketing claims. And this was one website that I pulled up, and you see there's a bathtub sitting on the floor. Obviously, that's a wet area. There's not going to be much chance of you getting out of that tub. There's not even a towel there to dry your feet off, so you're going to be putting water directly on that floor and then walking around on it. So why is it popular? There was a survey done a couple of years ago asking people, hey, if you had the choice between ceramic tile and vinyl, why on earth would you pick vinyl? And some of the answers they came up with is because, hey, it's fine in wet areas, the manufacturer tells me so, it's scratch resistant, it says right on the box, it's durable in general, the pricing's good, I can get it installed cheaper, do it myself. There's this kind of idea that it's very healthy and safe, and we'll debunk some of that as we get into the slides. And then there really is, honestly, a comparison to ceramic tile. They're saying, well, it's as good as ceramic tile, why would I pay the extra to put the ceramic in my house? But when you start really diving down into some of the warranties of these products, and I apologize, this is a little small, but if you go on to one of the big box sites and pull up one of the very popular brands' warranty, this is what you'll see, and it says the waterproof warranty is only for the product, not for the floors or the walls or anything underneath the product, just the product itself. If you're going to use it in a scratch environment where it might get scratched, you need to have a walk-off mat, which of course everybody has. You need to put your furniture on pads, which I know certainly is very common. So there's things like that baked into the warranty that people don't really read the fine print, but basically the manufacturer is saying, it's great, but we're not gonna back it. So this warranty is something you can pull up yourself. Basically, it takes away everything that they give with the marketing. So a few years back, the tile industry realized, hey, we've got a problem. They're doing a better job in out-marketing us. We need to start doing some testing to debunk some of these claims. It's one thing to stand up here and go, they're all wrong, they're doing it wrong, and walk out the door. But if I've got some actual proof, some actual test results, that's what I'm going to share with you now about what we've actually tested to try to debunk some of these claims. I say we, but it was actually Ryan in the back of the room that did all the tests. So what was the testing? They took initially 10, and they got up to, I think, 32 different products from different classifications. Most of them were LVT, LVP type products. There was one wood, there was a stone thrown in there. I say wood and stone, a plastic coated wood and a plastic coated stone thrown in there for good measure. And they were all compared to ceramic tile as a control. These are all click systems, so I'm going to preface this by saying the issue with the waterproofing doesn't necessarily have to do with the planks. It has to do with the click system, or the system for putting the planks together. Basically, you've got a void in between, and that's where the water goes. So I'm not necessarily talking about sheet vinyl at this point, but some of the other stuff, like the scratch resistance and some of the things we'll get into, that also applies to the sheet products. But here, we're talking specifically about the planks. There is a test in the European Union. There isn't one here in the US, but in the European Union, there is a test for testing how waterproof a vinyl flooring assembly is. Basically, you take a box with no bottom in it, you silicone it to the surface, and then you fill it up with 10, 12 inches of water, 20 centimeters of water, which equals about 30 liters of water when you get it all in there, and you see what happens. If it loses any water over the course of a day, it's not waterproof. So I've got a little video that shows this better later on, but you can see there's water leaking out here, there's water leaking out the edge, and this is just literally seconds into the test. So it's not even close to waterproof with the joints, because all the water is just going straight through the joints, as you would kind of assume it would. So it drips from the edge of the seams. It also gets trapped between the flooring itself and the substrate. So some of the results are fairly eye-opening. You're losing literally gallons of water every hour through this system. So your kid overflows the bathtub, it sits on the floor for a couple hours before you notice it. Chances are you've got gallons of water that have made their way through the actual LVT and into your substrate. And that's not necessarily a good thing. There is another test that we use in the tile industry to determine how much water comes up from the bottom of these types of systems. You've got a pipe here that's full of water. You've got a valve. When you turn the valve, it puts pressure on the bottom of that assembly to see how much water comes up through. And exactly the same thing happens. The water comes right through the vinyl flooring. Again, you've got gallons over here in parentheses per hour. So you're literally getting gallons of material. In an hour, you're getting up to half a gallon of water that goes through the seams through this type of test. So the video here, you see them actually running the test, and almost immediately, because the water is dyed blue, you're going to start to see that blue seeping out through the seams in between the vinyl floors. So you can see there's a Already water just pushing its way right through. As it gets further into the test, you're going to see that they show the underside of the assembly where the seam is, and it's just going to be dripping all the way. Well, sorry, I won't give away the ending. I'll let you watch. I'll let you watch the entire video. Sorry about that. I have to say something while the video plays. Otherwise, you won't feel like you got your money's worth. You can see the water dripping out of the sides here. Then here is the much anticipated shot where you'll see underneath. And you start to see that at that seam, it's just running through there. It's not waterproof at all. The LVT might be, but the seam itself just leaks water. There was, sorry, dramatic music. I cut that off. All right, so taking a look at just the summary of the waterproof claims, and we've got a few more claims to debunk yet to go, so bear with me. But just on the waterproof claims, these are name brands. These aren't things that we found on the bottom shelf somewhere. These are actual being sold every day as waterproof flooring. They all make claims that they're either waterproof, water resistant. 24-hour waterproof is now becoming more popular. You'll see that bandied about. The warranties all exclude water damage to the substrate. So yeah, the product may not let water through, but certainly the seams do. And so that leads to the next topic. And really, I'm going to get into some pictures here that if you need just one picture to throw in front of a customer, you'll see it in this next little section here. So, spoiler alert again, that's right. Sorry. I shouldn't be giving away the ending. So the plastic flooring, the PBM flooring, doesn't prevent the moisture intrusion, so the water already goes through. And all you need for mold growth is a source of food. Well, this stuff is all organic, so there's plenty of carbon in there. There's plenty of stuff for mold to chew on. So the TCNA again did 22 samples. They tested and exposed them in a standard way to 5 different types of mold. This is the picture here that I was talking about. This is mold. So all the little balls you see there, those are big chunks of mold that are growing on the side. Now, yes, it is a cut surface, but you cut this product to install it, so you're going to have these cut surfaces available. Here's your stone look, here's your wood look, all this is mold. And again, you get more of the different kinds of mold on here. So this is, hoping it's going to work. Okay, this is a time lapse of a 28-day cycle, which is typical for when you run these mold tests, how long it takes to start to develop. And you can see it's right away, within a week. And you can't get the water out from underneath the system. It's leaked down into your subfloor. So as long as it stays wet and there's a source of food, this mold is growing in your house, and you get furry down there. So the results here, 100% of the plastic flooring samples supported growth of mold, 100%, all of them. The growth varied. It was a little bit to a lot, but I showed you the pictures of the lot, and it's pretty gross. And there is a ceramic tile that was also run as a control, and that one had no mold on it. So if you're comparing these again, do you want mold in your house or you don't? Ceramic tile is you don't. And then there's one other area where if it gets wet, it's a problem, and that's slip resistance. The vinyl industry doesn't really talk about slip resistance because they don't like to talk about slip resistance because their stuff is slippery. The ceramic tile industry, we have tests for it. We talk about it a lot. We put it in our literature because we know it's an advantage, but because we also know that it's important to let people know whether it's slippery or not. Now, do a little plug. At 2 o'clock, I've got another session on slip resistance, so swing by the show floor and check that one out too. So is it slip resistant? A lot of the plastic floorings are advertised as waterproof, water resistant, or suitable for areas where flooring gets wet. So they know you're going to be walking on it when it's wet, but they don't really say anything, again, about what we call the dynamic coefficient of friction. That's our test for slip resistance in the ceramic tile world. So we used our test equipment. This is the BOT 3000, which runs across the floor, and it measures how much resistance there is to moving across the floor, and that's your coefficient of friction. 22 products were tested. They were all advertised as being usable in wet areas. Of those, 20 of them, the ceramic tile industry would not have told you to use in a wet area because they weren't 0.42 decoff or higher. They were, in some cases, quite a bit less than that. And some of them were also directional. So the slip resistance in one direction is different. Usually the long way is more slippery than the narrow way. And that can be bad too, because if you expect it to kind of catch you and you hit it in the wrong angle, your foot can go out from under you. So the water leaks, they all grew mold, and they're all below the 0.42 threshold for decoff. So do you want to use these in a wet area? I wouldn't. I'm not going to pronounce cytotoxicity, sorry, or allergenicity. What does allergenicity mean? Oh, I did pronounce it. Yeah, anyway, came out okay. It didn't go so well in my dry run. So basically it just means, is the product going to be reactive when sensitive people step on it? Are you going to have a reaction? There are, again, specific tests that you can do. The FDA is one of the leading areas in trying to determine what substances will cause these reactions. So they both, basically the US FDA and the US Pharmacopoeia guidelines say you expose skin cells, you expose dermal cells to the product, and then you see what the reaction is. So that's this ISO 10993 testing. There's a grade level here where grade 0 is no cell damage. Grade 2, you're usually okay. When you get to a 2, really sensitive people will start to react, and anything above a 2, you can get severe reactions. And this slide says exactly the same thing, so I'm not going to repeat it. All right, so pictures of babies, it's always one of the scary areas. And in the marketing materials, they always show babies crawling around on this flooring, but they can have very sensitive skin, this kind of contact eczema, contact dermatitis. If you're sensitive to something in the LVT, it's going to create this kind of reaction. So these are some of the actual slides where they did expose the skin cells. This is a tile. You see there's no reaction. This is the before exposure, and then this was after the exposure. And this would have come out at a reactivity of a grade 3. So remember that former slide that shows that table? Grade 3 is a bad actor. People can actually react to these. Of the 22 products that were tested, 18 of them were at least a grade 2. That could be a problem, and 4 of them are grade 3. That is a problem. Of course, all the tile samples, and there were 6 of those, were 0, so there was no reactivity with tile. The next claim we're going to look at is scratch resistance. So this is an actual ad. You've got the little girl in roller skates, and you've got the dog, and they're there on the LVT flooring, and of course, nothing could possibly go wrong with this situation. Because these products are worry-proof, they're scratch-proof, they're pet-proof, they're life-proof. Nothing could possibly happen except if you take a look at the warranty says, well, scratching, indentation, or damage is loss of gloss. That's not covered. And also the manufacturers are recommending use furniture pads and mats and that sort of thing. So how do we test it? The Mohs harness, maybe you're familiar with it. You take different minerals and you try to scratch a product. It goes from soft, which is your fingernail, up to diamond. And there's all sorts of gradations in between. For most tile products, you're here at an 8 because they're made out of quartz, and quartz is what you're trying to scratch it with. They usually, tile products, unless it's very soft glaze, will be pretty resistant to scratching. Again, 22 samples were tested. All of them said they were durable and abrasion resistant. They had a major market presence, so these are, again, very popular brand names. Using that Mohs test, the C1895 test, and all of them, every single one of them, scratched with the number 3 pick. What is the number 3? It's calcite. It's basically chalk. So it's not really all that scratch resistant. So here's a few of the lab samples, and then don't judge, this is my house. I only moved in a few months ago, so I haven't had time to replace my LVT with, but you can see all the dog nails that have scratched up the plastic floor we have in our, not for long, hopefully, in our dining room. So again, customers say they want vinyl flooring because it's scratch resistant, but the numbers just don't add up. It's not. And then the exclusions and the warranties against pets, furniture, legs, et cetera, that's another thing where the manufacturer's basically admitting, hey, this isn't scratch resistant. This is one you may not think about until you don't, I mean, you may never have to think about it, but if you do have a fire, these products, if you've had a campfire and somebody said, hey, don't throw plastic in the campfire, it lets off, noxious fumes, that's true. It actually happens, and this is basically plastic. So if you burn it, it does give off all sorts of things that could potentially be dangerous. Why is this such a big issue? 75% of deaths from house fires aren't because of the flames, they're because of what you inhale. So it's either the smoke or something toxic that you inhale trying to get out of the flames. And that's a pretty alarming statistic. What's in plastic that could potentially come off if you burn it? Here's a list. Carbon monoxide. You probably all have a carbon monoxide monitor in your house if you have gas heat. Carbon dioxide, hydrogen chloride, hydrogen bromide, hydrogen cyanide. So all of these types of products tend to be in plastic flooring. This one's a little hard to see, I apologize, but the first two are carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. And basically, if you get too much of those, it can impair your cognitive abilities and eventually you pass out. And then the other ones, hydrogen chloride, cyanide, and bromide, those irritate your lungs really badly and could potentially kill you. So again, the TCNA went to work. They started testing these. They looked for, in particular, carbon dioxide and hydrogen chloride because those are relatively easy to test for. And what they found is, here we have tile, none detected, none detected. Here we have LVT, which about 2% by weight came off as carbon dioxide and is hydrogen chloride, and about 60% is carbon dioxide. So when this stuff burns, it puts out a lot of both of these things. So why does that matter? This is a lethal concentration in a half an hour. In other words, if you have this amount in half an hour, you'll probably die. This is what actually came off of the tests. If you took the test data and extrapolated it out for being in a burning house, 1,000 square feet of flooring for half an hour, you're going to have almost 4 times the lethal exposure to carbon dioxide and to hydrogen chloride. So just something to think about. These products, when they burn, they're pretty nasty. And there's one last category I'm going to mention, and that's phthalates. Phthalates are not something that comes off when it burns, it's just something that's always in there. And the phthalates tend to make it more flexible, so they do use those in vinyl flooring. But phthalates are kind of widely known as a potential cause of cancer, birth defects, reproductive harm. And if you live in California, pretty much you'll see the Prop 65 warning on anything that contains phthalates because it is a chemical concern. Ryan, you want to read the list of phthalates here? No? All right. Trust me, there's phthalates in this stuff, and you can read the list here. I'm not going to try to pronounce them. But there's 8 of them that were detected. These are all, 18 of these that were tested out of the 30 claimed to be phthalate-free, but 24 of the 30 had phthalates. So 6 of them were lying. We're not sure which 6 were, but they claimed to be phthalate-free, and phthalates were detected when they were tested. For the ceramic tile industry, what we've been trying to do is be more transparent about what's in our products. We did just come out with a material ingredient guide. I know this is hard to read, but I put it up here because this quote on the bottom is from me, so I thought it was important to have it here in this slide deck. The material ingredient guide discloses what's in ceramic tile, mortar, and grout. So it tries to get around that. Are there phthalates in it? No, you won't see phthalates listed anywhere. It's mostly silica, luminous, stuff that you can actually pronounce. Then some other chemicals of concern and some other, I guess, ideas to keep in mind when you're having those discussions about do you want ceramic tile or do you want LVT is the cleaning. Ceramic tile is pretty straightforward to clean, a little bit of water, maybe some neutral pH cleaner, and pretty much it comes right off. Not so much with some of these plastic floorings. Some of them have to be waxed. Ammonia is commonly recommended for cleaning. Acrylic sealers, if you start to lose that gloss, which you will because it's not scratch resistant, they recommend you use an acrylic sealer. There's some nasties in that. Load speed buffing, you can actually aerosolize some of the surface and get some of those phthalates right in your lungs if you want by buffing these things out. The scratch repair kits have some nasty stuff in there. And then one thing I didn't really spend a whole lot of time on in the presentation, but these don't last as long as ceramic tile. So people don't, you tell them, okay, 60 years, they're like, I'm going to sell my house in 5, I don't really care. But the LVT, the LVP type of products, their useful life, 5 to 7 years. So you really have to be careful about talking about longevity because you're going to have to replace that floor probably 3 times in the time it would take with ceramic tile. So I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, just a consideration here for the slide deck. So hopefully you've got some takeaways here. This luxury vinyl tile isn't waterproof, it's not mold proof, it's not slip proof, it's not fireproof, not scratch proof or allergy proof or really all that healthy, and it's not super easy to maintain. So is it really luxury tile? I guess I'll kind of leave that up to you to decide. I'm willing to take questions. What do you got? I've told you every single thing you want to know about vinyl tile. Yes. Okay. Okay, so the question is, some of these things claim to be Green Guard certified. Green Guard is a volatile organic compounds test, so they put it in a small chamber and they wait and they see if certain volatile organic compounds come off of it, and if they don't, they can get the Green Guard certification. I'm going to be honest, it's not that hard to pass Green Guard, so even though these have some VOCs in them, you can still pass that test and get the certification. Green Guard does have some levels. So you may want to push back and say, well, my tile can be Green Guard Gold because usually in the tile industry we don't even bother because it doesn't give off any VOCs and we can prove that. But some of the tile companies do have Green Guard certification and usually they're the higher levels that have less VOCs. The other thing the vinyl industry has done a good job is come up with some of their own green labels that don't really have anything to do with the nasty stuff I've just been talking about. They have to do with, maybe recycling water in the factory or something like that. So be a little careful about what that label is actually telling you. Other questions? Yes, ma'am. So that's a question I knew would come up. Thank you for asking it. Where can you get this kind of information? The tile industry has been sort of slowly disseminating it through iTile. It's a little bit of a legal gray area whether the tile industry can say these things or if it should be the tile manufacturer saying these things. I've got a blog post on my company website that goes into a lot of these specifics, and I encourage you to kind of run with it, pick up the banner and run with it, because the more we get this information out there, the easier it is to combat some of these claims. I did ask Kathy Meyer from YTile if the slide deck would be available, and I'm still kind of waiting to hear back on that, so stay tuned. Okay.
Obviously, this is different than hardwood floor.
Correct. Yep. This is just, when they're talking about wood, they would call it engineered wood, or it'll have some other term in addition to wood. So actually, the Wood Flooring Institute and stone flooring people and the ceramic tile, we're all kind of throwing in together to sort of combat this message, because if you're putting real hardwood, if you're putting real stone, if you're putting a real ceramic tile, you don't have the issues that we just talked about. Other questions? Well, I appreciate your time. You've been a great audience, and I'll stick around for a few minutes at the end if anybody wants to ask questions one-on-one. Thank you.